Hi friends, I wanted to make a video about the misuse of Occam's razor on the case of Lisanne and Kris. On their, missing their abduction, people are using this Occam's razor more often as a way to show that it's most likely a case of the two women being missing. And the people that use it, they truly don't understand Occam's razor. Occam's razor is, when there's two scenarios that, are equal, well, then the one that takes the less assumption is usually the correct one. The more simple, the more simple explanation is usually the correct explanation if everything else is equal. That's what it is. But friends, everything is not equal here. And if the more complex explanation has the evidence, then you go with the complex explanation. Occam's razor is if there's two competing theories and everything's equal, the one that takes the less assumptions is the better. If my trash can got knocked over, is it most likely my dog, or is it most likely my two cockatiels? Would my dog have my dog would have done it. That's the more simpler explanation. But the key word is when everything else is equal. Everything else is not equal here. There are so many things. I'm not going to say so many, but there's a handful of things that strongly point to abduction. And I made videos out of a few of those things. And I don't think there's actually anything that applies to the missing theory that can't be explained in the abduction theory. But there are things in the abduction theory that can't be explained in the missing theory. And we've gone over some of those already. So when someone says Occam's razor to you, they're misusing it. I mean, think about some of the, I actually researched the Occam's razor, and it's really subjective. And the easier assumptions for me may not be the easier assumptions to you. I mean, it's based on where we lived. It's based on our life experiences. I've heard more than one person that actually lives in Panama. I read their comments that said that it's highly unlikely that anyone would go missing, especially for 14 or 12 or 10 days in that forest. If that trail was searched. All right, it was searched for what, 12, 13 days? I have it right here. 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, there's a trail guide, at least one trail guide, who was leading at least some police officers, through the forest. Now, and I argued in a video before. Yes, if you're trying to hide from the police, if you're trying to hide from people in a forest, yeah, you might be able to pull it off. But if you want to be found, you're going to be found. This forest is not a forest. This trail, the piano player's trail, is not one where a lot of people go missing, friends. And this idea that they easily could have fell. How many people walk that trail on a daily basis that fall off a rock and break their foot? How many? Would it be reasonable to say that if hardly anyone falls and breaks their foot, then how can we even say that that's a likely, according to Occam's razor, taking the least assumptions, if people don't usually fall and break their foot, how can we say that's the likely assumption in the Kris and Lisanne case? We can't. They starved to death. Can we say that? Well, how many people have died in the piano player's trail that starved to death? How many people that started the trail actually starved to death? Well, not many. So how can we say that that's a likely outcome? Now let's compare that to the crime in that town of 22,000 people. There's a lot more crime in that town than there are people starving to death on that trail. That's my point. See, we need to just let go of Occam's razor here, and we need to have more of a history. This isn't a scientific case. This happened in 2014. That means we're dealing in the past. That means that science has a rule, but this is history. All right, 2014, and this is 2021 right now. We're looking back. We're trying to historically try to figure out this. And when you historically try to do something, it's about probability. We don't know for 100% everything that happened in the past. The thing is that we do is we sum up evidence, and then we have the evidence, like go against each other, and we see what's more probable. There's so much in our history books that we can't confirm 100%. It's just the most probable outcome. And that's why in 5 years, 10 years from now, the history books will change a little bit. And they'll keep on changing because more evidence surfaces. What's likely and what's not likely? Is it likely that two women who are lost on the first day of the trail and it goes nightfall, is it likely they would only place 2 calls to emergency services and then 2 calls the second day, one during the day and then one during the night, and then the third day? Or is it likely, if you were lost in a forest or lost anywhere and you were really afraid, how many emergency phone calls do you think you would make? Do you think you'd make 1 or 2? I mean, do you think you make like 6 total in the first 3 or 4 days? I mean, let's get real here. The 30 fingerprints, no, 20 fingerprints, more than 20 fingerprints were found. I believe it was on the bag that was found, Kris's bag. Now, they all could have been indigenous people who were innocent who just passed the bag along before they turned it in. That's possible, but we don't know. The police, they either never did an investigation or that they did an investigation. They never let it known publicly to what it is. So we just, to our knowledge, there wasn't an investigation to who those 20 fingerprints were. Well, what about where the bones were found? What about the crime scene where if there was a crime where the bones were found? Why wasn't there forensics taken? I mean, a lack of forensic investigation, lack of dogs being taken back to where those bones were found. There's a lot of odd things about this case. There's the nature of the decomposition, how it's not equal, how you have a half a pelvic bone that looks like it was actually far more decomposed and it actually looked like it was bleached compared to bone that actually had skin. And you actually have, a rolled up piece of skin that doesn't look that decomposed. You compare that with a bleached pelvic bone. You're telling me that's natural? You're telling me, according to Occam's razor, that's natural? If you think Occam's razor actually supports that, please stop using Occam's razor because you don't have an understanding of it. And I say that in a nice way. I'm not trying to be negative. But it's just meant to be used when 2 things are equal. If my trash can's knocked over at night, did my cockatiels do it or did my dog do it? If you flunked that test, is it because you think your teacher was drunk and misgraded you, or did you not study properly? You see what I'm saying? Equal things. What's less assumptions when things are equal. But this isn't equal. All right, friends. Instead of using Occam's razor to try to solve crime, which to a level I guess you can use when things are equal, but when things start not being equal, the way to do it is judge what is likely compared to what is unlikely and put it up to each other. There's a strong case that there was an abduction in Lisanne and Kris's case. There's a strong possibility that happened. And every evidence that I've seen someone give that didn't happen, I haven't really seen any. So I want to make a video about that, the misuse of Occam's razor. And I hope if you're listening to this and if you disagree with me, please say so. And if I came off as mean in this video, I didn't mean to. And I kind of feel like I might have come off a little mean. Not a little mean, but maybe a little more, yeah, maybe sarcastic. Thing is I've tried to film this video. This is how pathetic I am. Is I've tried to film it like 5 times already, and this is like my 6th time. And I don't want to do it a 7th time. Anyway, thank you for listening. Take care.